Welcome to today's reading. This is Trinity Gaia Oracle. As you can tell from the title here, this is kind of a truth coming through, a download that enough individuals within the collective have been calling out in discomfort and awareness of the dissonance. It's not resonating. It's not hitting as truth. And maybe, nobody's just put it in certain words for you to be like, yeah, you get it. Okay, I'm not the only one. And feeling that you're not the only one who thinks and feels about it in a certain way allows you to be like, oh, would you look at that? Because we are social creatures. We are. Yes, a lot of people that are called to this level of content are very familiar with wisdom found within themselves, with being in what they would call hermit mode, where you're going within and it requires you to not really include too many other, contributors while you're going through that process of healing and understanding yourself on a deeper level. But we are still social creatures, so we do still have that desire to know that what we're perceiving in this situation, we're not the only one in, say, for example, the room that sees the pink elephant. Where you can look at each other from across the room and kind of go, oh, you too? All right, okay, I feel a little bit better that I'm not the only one. Okay, cool. So, this download that came through was just like being bombarded, because we all are, throughout our day, between radio, TV, if you, most people were just like watching like YouTube, or we're checking out, like other platforms, and we're just scrolling, and we maybe have like a moment where we're like, that's interesting, or that kind of lands a little bit more. So we're bombarded, and something that I have encountered, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, it just did not sit right with me. And every time I've encountered it, it still did not sit right with me. Today, though, it was like there was this perfect kaleidoscope of connections that I was exposed to that it all fell together. And it was like, you got to speak to it. You need to speak to it. You understand. So many others, they need these words because they understand too. And to know that they're not alone in that is empowering. It's empowering. So think of me as the person in the room on the other side, filled with people that we connect. We lock eyes and we look at that pink elephant that nobody else is wanting to look at. They're just ignoring it. But you and I, we look at that pink elephant and we look back at each other. And then we look at the pink elephant and we look back at each other. We're like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. And you like slowly make your way to the other side of the room to be like, all right, okay, cool. Somebody else who sees this. All right, cool. So this concept is that, I don't know who they are. Doesn't really matter, because to some extent it's not just that level. For example, there's many layers and many situations in which the they or them title would apply. Excuse me. So it could be like school. It could be talking about your history, like when you were a kid, and the they or them versus like the they or them at work, or the they or them that you perceive is being, spoken about or presented to you on a grander scale in the human consciousness, in the world, in the politics in your local region, or even, more expanded than that. So what they do is like there's this projection of they're like being this law. Okay, dial it back a bit. Okay. Thank you, Spirit. So, there's this concept in Christian teaching, and it's not necessarily that every Christian will agree with this, which is fine, which is know that that's coming, but it's called inclusivism. So if you're an individual who, and there actually is an island like this, where they're purely like indigenous, no outsiders have been able to actually interact with them, they're actually protected. Because if they were to be exposed to anybody from outside, it would probably expose them to a lot of diseases that would wipe them out. So their little island is like this pocket of untouched humanity by the modern world. So this actually exists. So if you were happen to be, incarnated or born into a child that happened to live on this island, and you were just always doing the best that you could to live from a perspective of love, does that mean that because you were never exposed to the Christian teaching of Jesus that you were automatically going to hell? This inclusivism concept says no, because they've had to answer this question. And why wouldn't they? Because it is a very valid argument. Jesus preached love. That was his whole thing, love. And he lived in a really rough time to be preaching something so pure. And wow, okay, that's respect there, right? So, love, being a student of love. Okay. So, could someone from the outside go into that environment with that individual on that island and that indigenous culture and start telling them what their truth was? From our perspective as the outsider projecting onto this innocent being and starting to judge and label them when we don't really understand them. There's not love in that. That's not a loving perspective to have. It's just not. It's not. So this concept that they have about there being a law that they expose you to something in a fictional movie, for example, and because it's fiction, you're like, this isn't real. This doesn't apply to my reality. Is it a fun thing to kind of like talk about, or causes me to kind of question a few things in my own way of relating to my world? That is a good movie when you do that. That is good entertainment. Because it really gets you outside of your head and into a whole nother way of viewing things. For a moment there, you're fully present. You're not an autopilot. You're fully aware. You're questioning things. That is good entertainment. However, what they have said is that because this was in this fictional movie and that was in this and that was here and that was there, or maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's a comedian, maybe it's a song, maybe it's just an image, maybe if the song is played backwards, all of this stuff, dude, it's informed consent. If you present it as fiction, as entertainment, if you tell me that I gave consent because the record I listened to played backwards, said X, Y, and Z, I'm going to say bullshit. Call bullshit. Because you weren't fully informed. It's like a liar will give you some truth and a lot of bullshit. That statement right there, a liar. This concept that we've been giving permission because they snuck it into a joke or a fiction is bullshit. We did not give permission. We were not fully informed. Thus, this concept that they have permission is null. It is void. When you enter into a contract and you know that you cannot fulfill that contract, when you do not fulfill that contract, the contract is ripped up. And sometimes, depending, you maybe end up with fines or fees or you go to jail. And that is in the legal system, in the physical reality that we all have to kind of abide by because we live here. There has to be some structure to the chaos somewhere in there. So if you're expanding this out to a spiritual perspective, they're already in breach of their contract because they had to play cloak and dagger and do illusionary stuff and all of that. They had to do that to even get a little bit of a maybe, and it's a loophole that doesn't exist. And I'm empowering that right now because we all knew it felt wrong the first time we felt it. We all knew it was wrong. Now, what I mean by that in particular, for people that are, more of a spiritual mindset, that are called to the kind of content or interested in the similar things to what is here on my channel, people will say, especially when they're first kind of starting this experience and they're going, wow, so you mean I'm meant to work with light. I'm meant to help people. I'm meant to bring awareness to love. I'm meant to share what I know to help other people understand themselves and the world around them as another student of love. Meant to help ease human suffering by showing, not by preaching, by showing how you move in a loving fashion, how you maintain that peace no matter what chaos is going on. You know who you are. You love yourself. And someone on the outside of you going, oh, well, because I've heard this and it didn't feel right to me. They're like, well, really, that term has its history in this, and it has its history in this, and it has its history in this. Does that matter to an individual who is isolated and lives on that island? Not at all. Not at all. Doesn't apply to them at all. And in many ways, we are all islands unto ourselves. So why does someone else going, well, according to this, in this blah, 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 that word actually means this? Is that what you meant when you used that word? Is that the thought, the emotion, the vision that you had when you used that word? Because that's really where the power is. The word is restricting. It is so restricting. It is not expansive enough to be able to capture the full meaning of all of that in one word. Yes, your word has power. I'm not undermining that because it does. There is a teaching. It's called it's a book. It's something about the four truths, the fourfold path, four truths. It's a shamanic teaching. Toltec, Don Miguel Ruiz is the author, and one of those things is to be impeccable with your word. It's something you try to do, yes, but it doesn't imply that if this word means this to you and it means it to somebody else, well, now you have to change your definition to theirs. That is what I'm calling bullshit on. That right there. When I say that I work with love and I work with light, someone else comes in the room and goes, well, actually, it has its history and it's this actually really dark thing that you don't know you're agreeing to. Yeah, because I'm not. I don't know how many of you in that moment felt that, but I did, because that is true. That is so true. And I just pissed a lot of shit off with that statement. Oh, okay. Right now I'm going to say this for all y'all to hear because I'm going to ask the divine to just really up the protection around this channel, this recording, this microphone, this space I'm in, because this is what divine asked for. This is why I'm here, because that just pissed a lot of shit off, meaning it is true. Those of you that know, you felt it. And if you don't know that yet, and you don't feel that yet, it's not a lesser than. Welcome to the truth, and you're going to begin to walk this path. Know that there are people around you that can help you because they've been there. This should be a reassurance, not something that makes you feel like you're less than. I can't tell you what a comfort it would have been for me many times in my experience to have had a voice that I knew a little bit more than I did. It would make me feel better for knowing I could learn from someone else. Not be given my truth by them, but to know that they've been there already. And they have the answer for them, meaning I will find mine. Because I know what it is to feel like that too. I do. I do. This world we live in, the things that they give us to feel like we must always be comparing, we must always understand where we're at, and we're either in lack or we're in abundance, and it's just like okay, your side of the road. Bring it back to you. It's not about someone else's side of the road, it's about yours. And right now, right here in this moment, this word means this to me. Someone else comes in the picture, says, well, actually, it means this. No, it does not. You do not get to redefine what I mean, what I feel, what my vision is, what my truth is, because you want to hijack my manifesting, my truth, my power, my sovereignty with your spin. Sorry, but I deny you that. This is the spiritual projection, and it is en masse. You encounter this everywhere. And this concept of working with light or being a light worker, I'm not agreeing to anything that voice tells me that means based upon, well, because of this history and this person and that. I'm not agreeing to any of that. I am separate from you. Yet I am connected to all that is. And this part of me that is separate from you is saying that is your side of the road. It's not allowed on my side of the road. It belongs on yours. Your side of the road is not going to become mine. We are all walking our own unique path, and that uniqueness means that stuff, that's yours. It's not mine. To kind of bring it a little bit, down more into the physical, like everyday experience, because these are pretty like grander, bigger picture dynamics, which channeling for Gaia. And she's like Earth mom, right? She's mom. And I don't know about you, but she's a balanced mom. She can be assertive and receptive. And right now, she doesn't like how we're feeling. She doesn't like this concept. She can feel the dissonance too, and she doesn't like it. She feels that you're aware that it doesn't resonate. And she wants to bring that truth to you in your physical reality. Hi. And then you have the Trinity that is, more like father-ish, assertive. Sometimes very receptive. It is your unique relationship with what these concepts, these labels, the archetypes mean. It's not about the words I'm using. What does it mean to you? The way I look at it is they're parents, and they've been watching this happen. They've been feeling it go down, and this is like an answer to your prayer. This is your manifestation. That's why I say thank you for co-creating this with me, because this wouldn't have come to me if people in the collective were not calling for this truth. I could hear the kids possibly playing outside in the backyard, so I apologize for that sound, but that in and of itself is like, to bring it into the physical, to be at play. I had a coworker a long time ago, and she had a wound on her side of the street. She had a trauma. She had a pattern that she was repeating, and she was having a hard time breaking out of it. And her, unique, her own personal way of relating with the partners that she would have in her life was her own. It was more open than something I was comfortable with. And she encountered other people that she would share this with, other women in particular, and she would want them to validate her, to make it okay, to accept her. But the way that she presented it to me was like, I would have to agree that this would be something I would like to experience myself and be fine with myself in order for her to not have hurt feelings and feel rejected and judged. And part of loving myself has been, even before I really fully knew as much as I know now, and we're always going to be learning because things are always changing. I know this about myself. I know how I relate to this. I'm more old-fashioned. It just is what it is. I just know the environment that I feel I can expand in and just really revel in the beauty of the moment and not feel like I need to guard or defend in any way. And this relationship, and we're relating to other people and her partners, that's where she found that. And I was not judging her for that at all. But I was not going to say that it was my own experience or my truth too, because it's not. I was not comfortable with lying to her in order to validate her. That's not the way that someone who loves themselves, let alone loves someone else, communicates. That's just not how you do it. And it just wasn't my truth. I did not see her as less than. I saw the moment she decided I did. And she didn't really give me a space to really explain how she backed me into a corner there and basically was continuing this cycle, because every woman that she talked to who didn't go, yeah, I'm totally fine with all of that myself, she was basically vilifying them. And that was not very loving or caring or respectful of her towards them. Why do I, being someone on my own side of the street, have to be the exact same as you for you to not feel judged? We are all unique. There is a separateness in that. It doesn't mean I think any less of someone else for not having the same way of loving as I do. If we all love the same, my gosh, you know how redundant this would be? I'm not saying that sometimes it would be nice if some things were a little less interesting, but if there wasn't that variety, we wouldn't be challenged to be outside of our comfort zone, to learn about ourselves. There is beauty in the chaos, but you make your own decisions about that chaos. Someone else's choices about the same chaos are not a judgment about you because they chose differently. It means they're unique. And the concept that we are all connected is it's like God experiencing themselves through all their choices. So the fact that there's diversity is a beautiful thing. Contrast is a good thing. So Spirit is calling me to kind of bring this back. I'm going to stop my feet a little bit, ground a little bit here. I'm getting all up in the energy here. This message is basically, it really comes down to your side of the street, their side of the street. If to you X means this, some other voice coming in, trying to put this negative spin based upon history, which we all know is written by people with agendas. Just like with wars, the victor writes the history book. They don't write in all the awful things they did that if the other side had won the war, totally would. So they come in with their history and they're like, oh, well, it actually means this, and it actually means this, and it really means this. No, it doesn't. Not to you. Your truth, their truth. They stay on their side of the road, you stay on yours. And maybe in that moment when they're doing that, because I encounter this with a lot of people, and I'm sure the concept, the moment that you, like, maybe you're already aware of it, but maybe this is your first time encountering it. You're going to start to see this, how this happens a lot. And it's really because people are trying to understand themselves through knowing other people. By you demonstrating that they cannot define your truth for you, they know it's possible then for them to look to those who have basically said this is the truth, and for them to go, well, is it? Is it my truth? And this causes the domino effect of people waking up to this concept that groupthink can actually be very detrimental. We're not carbon copies of one another. Even if we were able to clone ourselves, that clone would not be the exact same being that we are, because they don't have the history in the body that we carry. Every hurt, every scar is part of your story. No one can take that from you. Can't copy paste that. Can't cut paste that either. So the concept that I pretty much end all of my readings with is namaste and what it means to me. We're all students of love, all of us. And yeah, there may be people watching right now that are not, but they're learning whether they want to or not because they're being exposed to this concept. So, hi, so you know, you're seen. You know, light's getting in whether you want it to or not because you're here. You're known. You think you can't be seen? Well, there's a being far beyond us that is well aware of you. So that to me is namaste. The concept breaking down namaste is saying the love, the light within me, that soul level awareness, that deeper connection to all that is acknowledging that within you. And for those that are doing this projecting and wanting to hijack our energy and our power and our sovereignty and make us believe that we entered into a contract that they knew full well they weren't going to fulfill, and they were lying about more than half of it, that somehow it still is binding. No, that's just getting ripped up. And there's consequences for that. Whatever dimensional level you want to speak to it. But when you're in breach of contract in like human law, in the physical, my only reference would be the states at this point. There's consequences for being in breach of contract. So why wouldn't that apply in other dimensional levels to it? And so there's consequences for being in breach, especially when it was consciously intended to be in breach. It wasn't like you accidentally stumbled into it or things just happened to happen. No, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you were doing. There's consequences for that. It's criminal at that point. So the divine sees you. The divine understands and knows. And it's not because the divine is coming at you with hatred or wanting you to be, you know, what's that concept of fire and brimstone. It's you hold, how do I want to put this? Because the divine is aware of you. The divine is wanting to bring you back into the fold. And sometimes tough love is needed to do that. I don't know. I think I'd rather be working with the divine when it comes to something like that than our modern day, what do they call it, rehabilitation jail systems. Like, are they really rehabilitating? I mean, sure, there's probably some really beautiful success stories, but is that true across the board? I'd rather be working with that source, the divine, that being of love that is just beyond our awareness. So that is something I haven't gone into that detail with. If you've been watching me for some time, I always end my readings with Namaste. I always do that. I haven't gone into that much of the detail before, but it was needed. The divine apparently wanted those words to come through. So when I say the divine, the love within me honors and sees the divine and the love within you, it's like saying, hey, hi. That's what Namaste is. I know that it's kind of presented in everyday experience, especially because it comes from India, that Namaste is just like a greeting, like saying hello. But reading up on like the deeper meaning of it, it's beyond just, the English, like hello, hi, how are you? Superficial level of communicating. It's much deeper than that in its true meaning. And as a student of love, I'm always going to be learning. And I am saying that because there's nothing wrong with knowing that you'll always be learning about it. That there are other people on this path that are also students of love. That we're all learning. It's not about who's above who or who knows more. It's not about hierarchy at all in the human concept, the way that we relate to it and organize ourselves. It's so ego based then. This jockeying for, I don't know, position, I guess. It's not about that at all. With love, it's about inclusion. The exact word there, inclusion, inclusivism. It's the me and you on opposite sides of that room filled with people. We looking at that pink elephant and back at each other and just kind of go, yeah, you see it too? Cool. All right. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that we agree on our perspective of it, but it is reassuring to know that there's another consciously self-aware being that is aware it's there, that sees it too and is willing to go, why is nobody else noticing this? More noticing that, more connecting, more aware, more waking up. You're not alone in that awareness of the dissonance within that statement, where you feel like you're being like duped because they want you to believe you are. And the truth is, you don't have to agree to it. The moment you call bullshit, you're calling back that power. So, namaste from across the room. Namaste.